Welcome back, everyone, to the second segment of our seminar, the how-tos in deciphering the dating code. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm here with our expert, Bob Paff, in the field of communication, Marilyn for self-esteem and holistic psychotherapy, and Rob, our relationship expert. Now, I'm so glad to have you all with us here today. So let's jump back into what we've left off the first segment and discuss more now about the challenges in meeting new people. Now, as we had some conversation with our audience, they feel that there's something missing when it comes to, okay, well, I'm here in front of the person, I say hello, what is next? So how do you break that ice, Bob?
Well, it goes back to your communication style and your communication skills. How comfortable are you in those situations? You talk about breaking the ice. Very difficult for lots of folks to break that ice. And I think it comes back to being self-aware and self-actualized. And you know what, Dan, what I encourage people to do all the time with things around communication is rehearse. We all have different levels of skill when it comes to communication. So maybe what folks need to do is practice in the mirror, practice with a friend, practice with a family member. And I hate to say this because it sounds contrived, but I think for some people it might be a good tool, not a crutch, is have a couple opening lines. Maybe beyond, hi, what's your name? And then it's like, duh. I mean, what do you do after, hi, what's your name? Acknowledge, boy, these things can be awkward. I'd like to get to know you or whatever. I'd come up with 2 or 3 or 4 approaches that you're comfortable using based on your own style. Practice them, perfect them, get them down.
What are your approach, Bob? Let's go to the core of that.
I love people, so I love stories, and the facts show that, or the studies show that it's the stories that resonate with us, not the facts and the figures and the statistics. So I'm generally interested in other people. So, I want to know about people and just, again, I'm going to go back to Dale Carnegie, speak in terms of another man's interest. People love to talk about their own interests. And so if you just let that go, you can probably sit back and, practice being a good listener. So
you would not recommend someone to just come with their bank statement with 10-digit number and say, hey, here's the way to break the ice.
Dan, it's funny you say that. I have a friend who's on millionaire.com, and so those sites and those places are out there. So yeah, some people might want to come with a bank account. And so if that's your litmus test, net worth has to be $1 million or we ain't talking, .com. Maybe there you go. Then you have to figure out what that is. Yeah.
Now, go ahead, Marilyn.
Yeah. Someone in the break was asking, how do you talk to someone that you think you'd like to meet? So if you connect with somebody and you see they're looking at you, they smile at you, you smile at them, you have a connection, just go for it. Don't think they're going to come to you. Don't be, it's hard not to be shy when people are shy, but you just got to go for what you want, just to meet somebody that's connecting with you. You can connect just with your eyes, with a smile. You can see their essence, their spirit inside, you can see from across.
Yeah.
The same situation.
Yeah. And what we haven't talked about either is chemistry and all that energy. We're all connected, by energy. Chopra talks about that. The world's connected by energy. And so are you feeling at your core a connection to this person? Do you share the same values? Mm-hmm. I'll tell you one of the things that's important for me is I am a man of faith. I'm a practicing Catholic. And so while I don't force that on anyone, I do like to find, if somebody says they're an atheist and that's kind of prominent on their profile, I'm going to click or delete or swipe or whatever it is to do, because they're probably not a good fit for me. Mm-hmm. I want people that are faith-based, that believe in something. And so if somebody says, I'm an atheist in capital letters, probably not a good place for me to go, But I'd like to find somebody who, likes to go to church. I mean, that might sound hokey and very untraditional these days, but
that's who you are.
It's who I am.
Right.
And I think as a world, we've lost a little bit of those fundamental core values. Look, folks, what we're doing clearly isn't working. We have a lot of problems in this world, so why don't we try something else? I said to my son one day, he's 31 years old, and he struggled with some things. And I said, Zach, why don't you go to church with me? And he said, why? And I said, why not? Because maybe what you're doing isn't working. Let's try. What's
something
the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Try something else.
We got a question right there.
Yeah, so just to speak to that, I noticed personally, I feel like just this current generation is moving more towards less traditional right? Especially like with all the things happening with like media and technology and things like that. We're really getting into less traditional methods, like not as many people go to church, for example. Or another example is like it used to be that like the guy's the breadwinner and the woman like stays at home and cooks and cleans and things like that, and it's becoming more like the expectation is you both do all these things now. So it's the question is how can you like figure out where the compromise is? Like how do you understand like, or how can you decide this is what I'm willing to sacrifice for what I feel is my beliefs versus I want to be able to meet the right person and find someone who I can really, work well with and things like that. So, I mean, just for me personally, I've made like sacrifices for one of my exes and it didn't work out. And like, because I wanted it to work out, I made compromises and sacrifices on my end to make it work out. And then in the end, it didn't work out. So it's like, how do I know these are my boundaries? I need to just leave it at these are my boundaries. When do you?
Well, what comes to my mind is, were you willing? Did you make those compromises happily? Okay. And at the end of it, when it didn't work out, were you satisfied with the result, or did you become bitter and resentful?
Good
You see?
question.
That's a great question. At the time, I was saying I was doing it because I love her and I care about her. And then looking past on it and thinking about it, it's like I did all these things for her and it kind of just like kind of didn't matter, so I guess yes, a little bit bitter, but it's just more so I'm just a little bit just sad that it didn't work out and
Was
I
it
put
a-
in that effort.
Was it a one-way street in terms of her doing things for you?
So it wasn't necessarily a one-way street, but it did feel like the expectation was you need to do what I want as soon as I bring it up, whereas she wasn't giving me the time to be able to change and things like that. And then she expected everything instantly.
Immediate.
Yeah.
So it was one-sided, and so the relationship couldn't survive on that basis.
Yeah.
And so that you feel really sad about that is understandable. Here's my take on sacrifice. There's authentic sacrifice and inauthentic sacrifice. I regard an authentic sacrifice as something I am willing to give, even at some personal cost to myself. But I'm doing it consciously, with self-integrity, and absolute key, without resentment. Okay? Without resentment. If I'm making a sacrifice and I'm carrying resentment with it, then it's inauthentic. And I ought not to do it. Okay? So maybe that will be helpful to you in the
nice.
future in terms of thinking about, and it also then permits a kind of not worrying about what the outcome is. And in particular, like in a dating phase. In a marriage, let's say, then hopefully the sacrifice that either partner makes for the other, I mean, that's part of relationship too. But again, it has to be authentic in the sense that I do it willingly, consciously, and without resentment.
Because then you're not tied to the outcome.
Right.
So
Yes,
just to say,
exactly.
You're not tied to that. You're letting it go out of your heart, and just you know that it may work, it may not work, but you're not tied to it either way.
Okay.
So never regret anything, basically.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay.
But it sounds like you've learned and grown from that. It doesn't sound like, I could take Rob's comment a step further, it doesn't even sound like it was really a relationship. It was certainly imbalanced, right? And you're probably a better person as a result of having gone through that experience if you processed what happened.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you did.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there's a way, like I read, and this is, I think it's someone who told me that there's like two ways of making, well, one way of making a man happy and making a woman happy. To make the man happy, give him the remote control, food, and sex. To make the woman happy, give her, be like a carpenter, food, sex, and like a list goes on and on and on. So it's, it's again, imbalanced.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So how can we balance all that? I guess it's, again, based on communication. What do you expect of the other person? And be clear. I mean, it's a lot of people fail to communicate properly. They think they speak English, but when you really look or listen to them carefully, they speak alien. So be clear what you want, what you're looking for. And it seems like a lot of people have that kind of difficulty. So master that before you could master something else.
Dan, let me share something really quick before you come up here, and I love this. It's on my business card. You've all heard of George Bernard Shaw. Most people know Shaw as an Irish playwright, but George Bernard Shaw was also the co-founder of the London School of Economics. Just a brilliant guy, and he said this, and it was so profound to me that I incorporated it on my website, and it's on my business card. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. And Shaw said that in the 1800s. And here we are today in 2016, and I would argue that we still have that problem, right? How many times have you said something to a person, they walked away, and then what transpired was not even close to what your expectation of that conversation was?
Right.
Because we don't ask for the validation and confirmation on these
Which
things.
is why when couples are in therapy with
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
I teach them how to be empathic with one
Yes,
another.
yes.
And so if you're sharing with me,
Right.
I need to empathically acknowledge
Right.
what you've shared
That's right.
so
By
that you
repeating.
have some confidence
Yeah.
that I'm understanding you
Right.
the way you want me to
Yeah.
That's
understand.
right, and you said that
Actively-
earlier.
actively
We talked about-
listening, yeah.
We talked about that.
Actively
you know,
listening is so
To
important.
repeat, to reiterate what they
Right.
said, to make sure
Right.
that you
Primary
understood it
accurate
properly.
empathy. That's
Yes.
right. That you want to. Right.
So
That's
people want to
exactly
know
right.
that they're heard and they're
Yes.
validated, and
Yeah.
they matter.
That's crucial.
And it's so easy to miss that one. So easy to miss it.
Well, that's really intriguing to me because I have George Bernard Shaw's quote exactly at my desk. Every day I look at that.
Wow. And I did not know that.
There you go. Small
See
world.
how it's all meant
Question
to be.
is,
Nice.
once you get to the stage where you're in a relationship, how do you know that you do share the same values? Because again, the communication is, I may or may not say I'm a practicing Catholic, but I could be spiritual. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that would be enough for someone who was looking for a practicing Catholic. So
Yeah.
what mechanisms can we take advantage of to see if we're on the same page or not?
Yeah. I've actually had that come up, and we talked earlier in the green room. It's not green, but you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Marilyn and I talked about that because Marilyn is of the Jewish faith. I'm Catholic. We talked about religion versus spiritual.
Right.
You know, and the two are very, in my mind, very interconnected. But it's interesting for me because I talk about it a good bit. I really do. When I travel around and talk to people, I've had audiences come up and say, wow, you're the first speaker to ever talk about his faith. And I will tell you, I was on the Steve Harvey show in 2013 as a guest, and he said to me, what are the three most important things to you? And I said, my family, my faith, and my failures. And which one do you think he wanted more information about? My failures, because it's the being knocked down and getting back up. But my faith, I will tell you, has gotten me through the worst times of my life. When I went through my first divorce, I dropped my kids off, and I would be in the first pew at Mass, first pew every morning at 8 o'clock, every single morning, because I needed answers. You know, I couldn't understand it, and that was a place, and to this day I feel very comfortable I can go there, even if I'm just in my own head, you see. So, but I've had people seeing that I'm Catholic or whatever, and I've had people, not attack me, it's too strong, but, oh, I don't know, you're probably right wing, or you're this or that or whatever, and I don't even bother to go there. You know, all these false assumptions. So I think you just have to have the conversation. I'm spiritual, and I also consider myself, you know, religious. So you just have to have a conversation around it, but I'm not fanatical. It's really strange to me that when I talk about my faith, everybody kind of goes to that. Maybe that's what they hear, because as somebody earlier said, we've gotten away from sort of those traditional values. I'm very Ozzie and Harriet. I'm sorry, I was born in 1960, but probably should have come out of the 50s, June and Ward Cleaver, you know, all that kind of stuff like that. I just think the pendulum has swung too far that way, but that's my personal belief.
And you can ask people what
Yeah.
what it means to them to be spiritual or
Yes.
religious, and how are they aware of their spirituality? How do they connect to others, connect to nature,
Yeah,
the bigger picture, and all that?
Correct.
And you have another question.
Now a clarification. It was the lack of the art of communication because it wasn't so much about that particular topic.
Yeah.
It was about topics in general and belief patterns and values. How do you get that information if you're not good communicators? So do you know if this person is going to be compatible with you or not compatible? Regardless of how you might say this is your faith, and the way I say it, they could still be very compatible, but we don't really know that. And is there a mechanism for that?
Well, it starts with simply talking, but more to the point, how two people talk. When I work with a couple, I put them in what I call a structured dialogue process, okay? Where at any given moment, only one person gets to express. The other person not permitted to interrupt, really key. I regard interrupting somebody when they're speaking as fundamentally disrespectful because you're interrupting their train of thought. You're also shortchanging yourself of the opportunity to learn more about the other person, okay? So fundamentally not a good thing to do. The listener also ought not to say anything from his or her point of view for now. The focus is on the other person. Really take in what this person wants to share with you about themselves. And then, at some point, agree to change roles. And now the second person gets to express. But of course, the intervening key is the empathic acknowledgement that we were just talking about, where before roles change, one person expresses, the other person listens intently without interrupting. Empathize with the other person verbally, so the other person can feel understood. You get me. I feel understood by you. That's then when you want to change roles. Now the second person gets to express. The whole point of this process, and it is a structured, formal process, different from day-to-day communication mode, it's designed to help people go deeper and deeper and deeper. What's really at stake for you around spirituality, as opposed to what might really be at stake for the other person around their different spirituality, or perhaps their religiosity, or whatever it might be. This is how two people get to know one another in a deeper kind of way.
But how much, yes, someone has a question? No? Okay, sorry. How much information do you really want to know? Or are you willing to give? Because to a certain extent, if someone is reserved, can you blame them for that based on their past experiences? Maybe they've been cheated on. Maybe they've been lied to. And they're very, they restrain their feelings that they do not want to be able to give too much. How do you
Let me
go
take
about
that question, because first of all, if somebody's really reserved, they're probably not a good fit for me. Second of all, having cured myself of my rescue fantasy, I'm not interested in any more projects. And I don't mean to sound harsh. I don't mean to sound harsh, because I think we all have to do our own work. I am very interested in, and folks, establish your deal breakers. Establish your deal breakers, okay?
Yep.
I'm not going to accept this. I mean, I know things that I'm, and the other thing too is there could be one or two key things where you really connect, and as Rob said earlier, maybe his wife is interested in something that he doesn't share the interest. They still make that work because the things that they're compatible with really work, and it doesn't matter. My ex-wife is a physician. I'm not good at math and science. So you see what I'm saying? But I supported and celebrated and all that kind of stuff like that. So establish those deal breakers. So a person who's reserved is probably not going to be a good fit for me. Okay. I'm not looking. I'll tell you honestly, that was part of the reason that my second marriage ended, because my ex had some issues from her background that she just was not willing to go there, whether it was too traumatic or anything. Or not, but I cannot be in a relationship with a woman who's not willing to go there. I'll go with you, as I think in a relationship we should be willing to go, but you got to be willing to go there. Otherwise, I think we're going to have problems, because a lot of what you do is going to come from that place that you've not resolved.
From a practical point of view, in terms of the dating process, I think one reveals oneself in stages. Okay, like on that first date, you share certain basic things, including, religion's important to me, or my profession's important to me, or whatever it might be, or my family's important to me. So yes, you want to share some basic truths about yourself with the person you're meeting for the first time. The second, third time, you begin to share a little bit more. Perhaps one of these two people have a difficult thing from their past that they're not yet ready to share. That's okay. It depends on where's the relationship gotten to, okay? And what level of trust do I experience in you, the other person, okay? Do I feel I can trust you to share this really difficult part of my past, whatever it might be? And of course, a person can be reserved around sharing that kind of thing until a relationship gets to a certain point. And of course, if it doesn't get to that point, that relationship's probably not going to work anyways. And so,
Very good point.
And so I may never reveal that particular piece of
Yeah.
myself to that person because we didn't get far enough.
Yeah.
Okay, that's perfectly okay.
Interesting. But when it comes to a little bit more of a deeper problem, such as anxiety, in which a lot of people do suffer from anxiety, how do you help them overcome? Like, Rob, like if someone comes to you and says, look, I'm medicated for anxiety. It does control my emotion, it does control somewhat of my behavior, my feelings, but yet it's not fail-proof. What other step do they need to take to be able to kind of break that barrier, feel more confident about themselves, and kind of like go through the process?
I often recommend meditation and yoga to people.
Okay.
Breathing exercises. I often will take a person through a 5 or 6 minute breathing exercise that I then encourage them to do on their own
Okay.
3 times a day.
Or 3 times an hour.
Yeah, I can explain that more.
There's a more extended piece though, you know, like a 5 minute meditation,
Yes.
mini meditation, to do that, let's say 3 times a day, to begin to develop a new way of being with oneself, of connecting with oneself. You know, we're talking about interpersonal connection. This is intrapersonal
Intrapersonal, yeah.
connection with myself. Okay, because those strategies can help reduce that level of anxiety. And of course, then there's the cognitive side of it. It's like, okay, what kinds of things tend to increase your anxiety? You mentioned desensitization before.
Yes.
So we can lead a person through a process of gradual exposure to a circumstance that's difficult for them, whether it's meeting people or flying or whatever the anxiety might be.
Interesting. Your stance on the fact of like the breathing exercise. And I meditate every single day for a good 35 to 40 minutes. And I do it half of the day, midway, because that kind of helps me kind of like go through the stress. And I'm not sure if you guys have ever tried to do this when you're sleeping.
When you're
No, it's
about to
interesting.
sleep, or?
No, well, in a way, is that what I do? Yeah, you'll be surprised because how do you access the subconscious mind? It's when you're asleep. So has anyone tried to take one of those like MP3 players, download positive affirmations that has to do with your anxiety or self-esteem issue, and there's tons of them on YouTube. Save them into the iPod or the MP3 and play it when you're sleeping and loop it over and over and over again. Eventually, your subconscious mind, which will register all those positive information, will be able to send that message to the subconscious, to the conscious mind when you're awake. And why did Albert Einstein was so smart? Because he was able to create a bridge between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, which is one of the most powerful mind ever. You only use 7% of the capacity of your mind, of your brain. The subconscious mind can go up to 35%. Try that.
Fascinating.
Every single night, loop it, and just positive affirmation of whatever you're dealing with, whatever problem you're dealing with, either anxiety, self-esteem, that you're not good enough, this or whatever it is, and let it play over and over again. I bet you it's gonna make a world of difference.
So nice.
It did for me.
Good. And then I have an idea. You guys have this. I handed it out, and it's back there. It's how to pause daily to get out of your head, because healing happens when you get into your heart and you get into your breath. And then so it's like it's something you can keep with you. Today's date, how I feel, and then make an appointment for yourself, because you make appointments for other people during the day, but spend time for you in the morning, at night, whenever that is, and do things to fill yourself up. And the 3 deep breaths are huge. You take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. 3 times in a row, and you're going to get out of your head and you're going to think differently about what's going to be happening. You're going to take a test, you're going to talk to somebody, you get in a different state of mind, your body will feel different. And when your body feels different, your mind will feel different, and vice versa. And then you say how I feel after I did this, and whenever I did, maybe connect with nature, with a dog, something that fills you up inside with your authentic self. And insight and growth I've gained from today, so you have proof every day what you can do to fill yourself up. And then I said it's not stress that's a problem, it's our perception towards it that is. And basically anything can happen to you guys in life, right? Or to someone else. So you can't be in control of everything in your life, but only thing I think you can be in control of is your perception towards everything. You can perceive things to help you in life, not to be thinking like burying your head in the sand, but to rise up and become more resilient. And this helps resiliency. If you do something every hour, and concentrate on yourself. Give yourself breath. You can give breath to others. You can give out, yourself to others and encourage others more and be there for others. But if you don't take care of yourself every day, every hour I think is really important, then you really have nothing to give. It's hard to give if you keep on, you don't give enough to yourself and nurture yourself and fill yourself up with water. And then it's like something called tapping, it's emotional freedom therapy. You tap onto meridian points in the body that hold on to stress. You say, even though I'm stressed, I deeply and completely accept myself. These are acupressure points, and there's different places in the body that hold on to stress. And then you take a deep breath out and in. And what it is, it's bringing in a positive affirmation. You can do this during the day. So even though I'm stressed, no matter what's happening outside of me or inside of me, the stress level, I'm still okay, I'm still enough. Just as I am enough.
Make sure to do that in private, because if you're in the public and you see people like hit themselves on
It's
the head,
fun.
that will not really look so good. They might call the asylum. So just make sure to do this at home. And yes, that definitely is a very good tip.
It really
Yes,
helps, taking
it does
care of
help.
yourself. Get out of your head a lot. And then I'm giving on the 8th empowerment workshop, holistic skill building empowerment workshop. Learn to bring a new heart energy to ease and strengthen your mind, body, and soul. Just learn ways to nurture yourself. If you go on my website, you can sign up for it. So if you'd like to, it's only $40 and it's 3 hours, and we'll learn a lot of different techniques, and it's like a support group, but it's going to be very good.
Anyone wants to add the last few questions before we wrap up? Come on, the floor is yours. We have like 3 professionals right here, so it's.
Anything you want to know that we haven't covered?
I guess we covered everything then.
A lot. We did a lot.
Yes.
Aren't we good?
Well, folks, that's all the time we have here for today's show. I would like to thank our guest panelists, Paff, Marilyn, and Rob, to coming to our studio today and sharing their extensive knowledge in the field of dating and relationship. There are so many singles in the DMV area and all over the world, so I'm confident that this show and their valuable tips will help many singles go through the challenges in putting themselves out there and meeting new people, and potentially meet their soulmate. So again, thanks to all of you. I really, really appreciate your presence, and I would like to thank also our audience for spending time with us today. I know that they could spend it outside with the beautiful weather, and also expressing themselves and asking questions and making this during the event. Now, here are a few words of wisdom. Now, waiting for love, you've grown impatient at times and have tried to force things that weren't meant to be. Fought too hard for something that you knew was wrong. Held on too tight for something that was already dead and gone, or pushed people away from fear. No more of that. The only thing left for you to do now is nothing. Love is a mystery that you cannot harness or control or elicit or will. Accept that it is a mystery and sit down, enjoy your life, and patiently wait your turn to fall in love. My name is Dan, and I really thank everyone for being here today. Again, thank you so much, and I appreciate your help.